The Power by Naomi Alderman. The Power is a speculative fiction book. It's a novel that flips society in terms of power. The book consists of men abusing women throughout the beginning of the book. Many of the characters are abused before they receive their power. The misuse of power between men reflects on contemporary society, making it a speculative fiction. The messages in the book are easily connected to issues that can be seen in contemporary society. These issues tend to be problems that men put women through, traumatic problems, whether it's sexual abuse, violence, and abuse of power. The book consists of a fight for power overall. In the beginning of the book, many women are going through things at the hands of men, which tend to be things that are very dark, things that make women feel less valuable, things that make women feel less than who they really are. These things are issues that society deals with on a daily basis. Men tend to have more rights. Men tend to have more power than women. And as men abuse their power, these women are the victims of their abuse. The author introduced the skin. This is a electrical power that was discovered in young women and eventually taught to be discovered in many women throughout the book. It's an organ that is found above the chest area, below the collarbone. This power allows them to shoot electricity from their fingertips as they learn how to control it. This serves as the women's anchor when it comes to flipping the dynamics of power and how men have always been in power. Throughout the book, women are put through problems, many problems, young women and older women. Alderman brings these events to light not only in the beginning of the book, when the characters are introduced, but also when the women gain their power and start doing the same things to men, in order to make the reader understand that these things do happen. And it also allows men who choose to ignore these problems to understand that these things happen, because if it takes for men to go through these things in a science fiction book to understand, the author does a great job of highlighting these problems. As women gain their power, they end up flipping the roles. But before they can do that, she highlights the abuse. The abuse of young women occurs in the beginning of the book with her character, Roxy. Alderman says the tall one bundles Roxy into the cupboard under the stairs so fast she doesn't know what is happening until the dark is around her and the dusty, sweet smell of the Hoover. Her mom starts screaming. Alderman's able to highlight the abuse of young women through Roxy when these men come into her house, which he later finds out were sent by her father. These men abuse Roxy as they attempt to murder her mother and end up doing it. This highlights problems that go on in society because men tend to be bigger and physically capable of abusing women. They tend to use these things against people who they see as defenseless, and they tend to also abuse young women because they find them vulnerable. Alderman highlights this through the things that occur. She also writes, he starts to laugh, holds the knife in his teeth, grabs her 2 wrists in one hand. She tries it again, nothing. He forces her to her knees. Please, says her mom, quite softly, please don't. Her mom's watching her daughter abused by these men as they entered their home, and she has no control over what can happen because they will do the same to her, and they were already doing the same to her. These are things that women face on a daily basis, and Alderman's able to bring to light in the beginning of the story. She also is able to bring the abuse of power and government to light in her story. The Violence Against Women's Act is an act that is past due for reauthorization and is most likely going to be authorized again soon. It protects women from acts of violence under law, and it was past due 3 years ago, and no one has done anything to push the bill, which has made news headlines. The abuse of power within government is something that occurs in our daily society, and here's a quote from The Hill. VAWA is currently 3 years past due for reauthorization. We urge the Senate to build on the strong bipartisan bill passed by the House, listen to the needs of survivors, and send it to the President's desk swiftly. Campbell and Jacobs, The Hill. These problems are things that can be connected to contemporary society because these things occur in our society. And they also occur in the book through the character Margaret, showing that the abuse of power is something beyond just physical power. It also comes to people in political positions. She also highlights sexual abuse against women through her character Tunde. Tunde had this happen to him when he was in the book. She has him on the ground now. She is wrestling with his belt and his jeans. She's trying to pull them down without undoing the buckle, and they're too tight to come over his hips. Page 207, Alderman. By explaining the things that occur during sexual abuse through the lens that is flipped and allows men to understand that these things do happen, Alderman is able to bring more light to the issue and bring more attention to it by showing people the true things that women go through. She also highlights sexual abuse of power in government through Margaret. Alderman writes, later in the hotel, she buys a couple of drinks for one of the junior guys from the American embassy in the Ukraine. He's attentive. Well, why wouldn't he be? She's going places. She rests her hand on his firm young ass as they ride the elevator together up to her suite. Alderman, page 328. This is something that occurs within our government. This is something that occurs in society. People in power tend to abuse their power because they see themselves as untouchable. Recently, Scott Stringer was running for mayor in New York when sexual assault allegations came out against him by one of his previous volunteers. Jean Kim, a volunteer in his 2001 campaign for public advocate, accused him of repeatedly groping and kissing her without her consent. He denied allegations, but the WFP and host of progressive elected officials and advocacy groups that had gone behind his campaign quickly withdrew their endorsements. Scott Stringer was caught for things that were occurring in 2001 recently as he began to run for mayor in 2021 for New York. And these are issues that occur within our society, not just in the book. People in power tend to abuse people in power tend to abuse their power, and they tend to abuse the positions and roles that they're elected as in order to get what they want. And right now, most of the time that these cases occur, it tends to be a male who is in power. By Alderman flipping the overall script, she's able to highlight the fight for equal rights and is able to highlight the things that are going on to show people what is right or wrong and really test where people's morality stands. The Power serves as a great book for the fight for equal rights and brings more awareness to the issues within contemporary society. And Alderman does a great job of bringing sexual abuse of power in government to light, sexual abuse of women and violence against women, and violence against young women as well throughout her book.